Hello, and thank you for exploring Lakehead International's videos. My name is Jordan, and I am the International New and Social Media Officer. I'm also the host of the Lakehead International Live series, a fun and informative way for you to connect with current international students, professors, and ask questions about admissions and everything Lakehead. You are about to watch a recording from one of our previous live sessions. If any questions arise throughout the video, please do not hesitate to comment below. If you would like to check out some of our upcoming live sessions, please head over to our website at lakeheadu.ca/international-live. Let's begin. I want to officially welcome you to Lakehead University, and we'll dive into sort of who we are and what we are. So Lakehead University is a public institution within Canada, and more importantly, Ontario, Canada. We do have two campuses, Thunder Bay and Helyar. Our Helyar campus is located in Central Ontario, and our Thunder Bay campus is located in Northwestern Ontario. Between the both campuses, we have just over 8,000 students, so we are considered a slightly smaller institution, but that doesn't negate the fact that we're a smaller institution with the full breadth of programming, so we're a fully comprehensive university, as well as the full supports available to our students. Today, we won't necessarily dive into all of the programs at Lakehead or all of the supports at Lakehead, but you can learn more on our website at lakeheadu.ca/international and how we can support you in your journey to Canada, to Lakehead, and then once you're here as a student, of course. So chatting about sort of where we land in the rankings and what we're really proud to share as a university. We are recognized as the #1 undergraduate research university in Canada. We've had that recognition for 5 years in a row now, so it's something that we're always proud to chat about. We're also recognized as the top Canadian university under 10,000 students in the entire world. That ranking's by Times Higher Education, quite a popular ranking within higher education in general, so we're always proud to chat about that. Speaking of our graduates, though, the next fact here is that 96.7% of our graduates are employed within 2 years of graduation. So that means that once you receive your Lakehead degree and you walk across that convocation stage, within the next 2 years, 96.7% of those students are going to have a gainful employment, which is really exciting, and it speaks to both the academic programming, the student life, the overall experience, but also how employers around the world view a Lakehead University degree. We are recognized as Canada's top 10 universities in the primarily undergraduate field, and something recently that just came out and we're really proud is that we're also recognized as the top undergraduate university in Ontario. So that's something very exciting to announce. And we're always happy to chat more about that as well. Small class sizes are always an important consideration of some of our students, and we also think that you should take that as a consideration as to what is the best method of your learning. On our Thunder Bay campus, our student-professor ratio is 15:1, so meaning that we typically have 15 students to 1 professor as a whole, and then on our Helyar campus, it's 13 students to 1. And last but not least, as we are hosting an international webinar today, I would be remiss not to mention sort of where our student body reigns from. So we are very, very proud to have over 70 nations represented on campus in our student body. So that's a number that we're always growing to. And hopefully you will take a part in your journey to Lakehead. You will add to that number, and you will continue to expand our diverse student body here on campus. Without further ado, I'll chat about academics at Lakehead. So academics at Lakehead are covered within our 10 academic faculties. Up on your screen now, you do see all 10 of those. Of course, today we're going to dive into the Faculty of Education, but I'll read the list nonetheless. So we do have the Faculty of Business Administration, Engineering, Science and Environmental Studies, Natural Resources Management, Education, Social Sciences and Humanities, Health and Behavioral Sciences, Law, Medicine, and Graduate Studies. So we've already hosted sessions, and we have webinars about many of these, and we'll be continuing to do those webinars. But as I mentioned, today we're going to dive into Faculty of Education. At this point, I would love to pass it off to our special guest. I think I've done enough talking so far today. So I'll pass it over to one of our special guests to introduce the Faculty of Education.
Thanks, Jordan. I can say a little bit to get us started, and then I'll pass it over to my colleagues.
Awesome.
The Faculty of Education has predates the university in Northern Ontario. So we have a long history of doing teacher education in Canada. Faculty of Education started as a teacher's college in the 50s, I believe, and then joined the university shortly after the university started in Thunder Bay. We also have a very well-established Department of Indigenous Education as part of the faculty, and we've been doing important Indigenous language teacher programs since the 70s. So we have a long history of doing very interesting and important work in the region. I'm going to pass it over to Meridith.
Great. I just wanted to welcome everyone and talk a little bit about our undergraduate programs in the primary junior. So we have two sort of streams through our program in the undergraduate. We have one that focuses more on kindergarten to grade 6, so that's available at both campuses. As well, we have an intermediate and senior stream, which is more the upper grades if you're interested in that, and that is available at the Thunder Bay campus. I'll pass it off to Dr. Helyar.
Yes, I'd like to mention, Don was mentioning the history of our programs. The Helyar campus opened in 2006, and we graduated our first cohort of teachers in 2010. So we've been having licensed Ontario College of Teachers licensed graduates since 2010. And the way the program works, you're either a concurrent student, which means that you do not have any university experience. So you come into the program to earn both your a partner degree in one of the various disciplines at the university, plus your Bachelor of Education degree. Or if you already have a university degree, you would be eligible to apply for our consecutive program, which means you're doing just the 2-year program that is at the end of all of our undergraduate education programs. So there are a couple of choices in order to pursue your dream and as Jordan mentioned, to embark upon this journey of becoming a teacher.
Awesome. Well, thank you for the introduction to both the faculty and undergraduate program. Up on your screen here, you'll see, as mentioned, for our undergraduate programs, there's the concurrent education. So there's the 6-year concurrent education, a bachelor's degree, honors bachelor degree. And we'll dive into those programs. And as mentioned, we'll dive into Teachables as well. There's also the 5- or 6-year concurrent bachelor degree. And then there is a 5-year concurrent accelerated program. So we'll chat about all this sort of stuff. And then the professional programs, as Dr. Helyar just mentioned, are within our consecutive education. And it's a 2-year Bachelor of Education degree. And that's for students. Maybe, for example, I'm an alumni, a proud alumni of Lakehead University, and I did our business honors Bachelor of Business program. And so I did a 4-year program, and potentially, provided that my grades got me through and got me admitted, I could consider doing our consecutive education program if I ever dreamed to become a teacher in the future. And that's how it's coupled. So if you are coming from another institution, you have an undergraduate degree that's 4 years, or equivalent, you can certainly consider that as an option if your passion is to become a teacher. And a teacher in Ontario is highly recognized around the world. I'm sure we'll get into that. But I'll dive into the undergraduate programming a bit more. And then in a few slides, we'll chat about our graduate programs here at Lakehead University. So as we already briefly chatted about, there is the primary junior sector, and that's offered both in Thunder Bay and Helyar. So maybe I'll pass it over to Dawn, if you wouldn't mind chatting about the primary junior, and then if anyone else would like to jump in as well, that would be, of course, I would welcome that.
I'm happy to do that, but we also have our primary junior program in Helyar, and it's the same program. So maybe I'll give Frances the opportunity to describe this if you'd like.
Sure. one of the, well, the primary junior program, as the slide says, provides you with a university degree, a Bachelor of Education degree, but also an Ontario teaching license that gives you the accreditation you need to apply for jobs in Ontario, and it is also transferable. The Ontario teaching license is recognized, as Jordan said, all over the world. And so in the primary junior program, because you're really a generalist, you take courses in how to teach math, how to teach science and technology, how to teach language arts, how to teach social studies. I'm trying to remember them all. Physical education and health, music, dance, and drama, art. I'm sure I've left out something. So these are specific courses teaching you how to teach in at those age levels. One thing I did want to mention in my job as a pre-professional program coordinator in a primary junior program in Aurelia, a lot of the advising I do is for students who are in Aurelia to get a kindergarten to grade 6 degree, but they know they also want to teach older students. So one of the things I do is help them strategize in terms of their course selection in their partner degree so that they have prerequisites in order to clear the path and make that journey a smooth one, so that they have what they need in order to teach at the high school level. So getting a primary junior teaching license doesn't necessarily restrict you from ever teaching at any other grade. Dawn, did you want to address specifically I know the Peapod program is really interesting, and also the math competency test is a big one.
We actually have a
Sure. So
slide here for the Peapod.
Oh, you've got, oh, okay, great.
I mean, it's a perfect segue into chatting.
This is not rehearsed.
So I'll pass it over to Dawn again for this.
thank you. So in Thunder Bay, and we are also introducing this in Aurelia, as a PJ student, you would take 1 day's worth of your coursework in a local elementary school. So we work with some of our local elementary schools and the principals and the staff in those schools. We have our own classroom in the school for the day. And our students spend a day there taking university courses with their university instructor, but living within the life of the school. And so over the course of your year in the school, you also start to participate more and more with the classes around you. And you get to do things like practice teaching. So you might do a small practice teaching assignment where you go out into some of the local classrooms with your fellow students, and you watch each other teach a small unit, and then you get to discuss each other's teaching. So it's a really nice introduction to the schools. We see it as a real strength of our program. It gives you a really good introduction to the school and the school life, and it gives you a really great way to learn to begin to teach right in the school. And then when you do your practicum, a lot of our students will end up doing their practicum within their pod school. So they've also got an introduction already to the school.
Awesome. And I know there's a few more slides here to chat about, and that's intermediate senior. So like we were just talking about, primary junior is focused around the kindergarten to grade 6 grades. Dr. Helyar, of course, mentioned that there is programming available, or there are pathways available within your undergraduate programs to hopefully secure the knowledge and the ability to pursue both levels. But we'll dive into this one as well, because this has the teachables that we previously mentioned.
So I encourage Tina to jump in with any information here that I missed. But at the IS level, so at the grade 7 to 12 level, you would designate 2 teachable, or choose 2 teachables that you would want to teach as a teacher in high schools. So in order to get into the program, you would need to show enough background in each of those 2 subject areas. So you choose 2 teachables, you have 5 FCEs, or equivalent of a full year's worth of courses in your first teachable, and at least 3 FCEs in your second teachable. And then you take specific courses over the 2 years, curriculum and instruction courses in each of those areas. So if they were math and physics, you would take curriculum and instruction courses for 2 years in math and for 2 years in physics. And my recommendation when I talk to students who are interested in becoming a teacher is to think about what it is you enjoy. You will probably, as a teacher, end up teaching more than your 2 teachable areas, but at least start off with what is it that you really enjoy doing yourself, and what do you like explaining to other people or discussing with other people. You're going to spend 2 years of very hard work in Teachers College or in our teachers program working toward these teachable areas, and the way to make it the easiest for you and the most enjoyable for you is to pick teachable areas based around your own interests.
Awesome, and that's another good segue into our next slide here about teachables. And I wanted to add on to your point there, something that as a recruitment team, as an advising team, we always work with our students to make sure that they're truly passionate and interested about the studies or the program that they are pursuing. We know that that's when students are going to be most successful within that program, and that's when we see the best return on their investment to their education is when they're most successful and they're getting the grades they want to see, especially if they're planning on potentially going into a graduate level programming or a professional school. You certainly need some strong grades to get into some of those programs, so it's a consideration that you should always take with you and not so lightly. I'll pass it off again to the panel, maybe to chat briefly about the teachables on the screen here today.
Tina, is there anything you want to say about the teachables?
Sure. I did want to mention that when I recommend students to the Ontario College of Teachers, I can only recommend 2 teachables, but that doesn't mean that you are limited to only teaching 2 subjects. You can go back after you graduate and go to the additional qualifications and look and see what kind of subjects, what other subjects we offer and what other subjects that you would like to take. And with that additional qualification course, you would then be allowed to teach at the high school level in a different subject. So you're not just going to teach 2 subjects for the rest of your career. There are other options.
I think that also speaks to the fact that, you know, as a university student, you're most likely maybe late teens, early 20s for the most part, and you're pursuing your education based on your passions at that point. And you might graduate, get a teaching job right away, and then 5 years down the road, you might say to yourself, you know, I'm really interested in doing this teachable. I really want to learn, gain knowledge in this. And of course, there's programming available, as Tina just mentioned, at Lakehead University to expand on that knowledge and also expand on the qualified information that then recognizes that you are able to teach in that subject or that area.
Jordan, the way I describe it is that you get your basic teaching degree, whatever it is, but then once you've graduated, you can extend your license. So you'll graduate licensed to teach a certain grade levels, certain ages of children in specific areas, but you take additional qualification courses. You may have to do some additional university courses to have the prerequisites to take additional qualification courses, but it's all about extending your license and developing your knowledge of teaching, how to teach, and the subject areas that you're teaching as you're extending that license. So as we say, I think a lot, teaching is a lifelong journey. You don't just get your degree and there you're done. You continue to grow, you develop in your interests, you develop in the subject areas that you are hired to teach. And so it can lead you in some very, very interesting directions.
And I have an example of that. I graduated, I'm not from Ontario, but I graduated with an undergraduate degree in history, teaching in the K-6 and 7 to 12. And what became really apparent to me was how sad it was that so many of my students were having trouble with learning to read or with reading when I was teaching in the high school. So that was what triggered me to go back in my graduate work, but you could do it with a teachable too, to go back and take literacy as my route and to specialize in that. So, you know, as you're teaching, you develop passions and you see areas that you want to make change, and then that's a perfect way to extend your degree and be able to qualify yourself to teach in other areas?
I became a music teacher with my English Lit degree, but extended my license. And yeah, so I think it, talk to any teacher and you can hear the stories. And that's the other thing, that our students come to us with a variety of different backgrounds and stories and reasons why they want to be a teacher, what their professional goals are and their personal goals. And it's a wonderful way to learn about what teaching is in the different ways that people approach it and come to us. And one of the things we sometimes talk about is good teachers are not born, they are taught. So there are some people, I was not one of these, who grew up thinking, oh, I really want to be a teacher. But we specialize, I think, in teaching people how to be good teachers, whether they were born to it or whether it's a passion for them and they need to develop those skills. That's what we do. We help you to become the best teacher that you can be.
Certainly, and I think that in some of our
I
upcoming
just wanted to add too that,
yeah, go ahead, Tina.
sorry. I just wanted to add too that the areas of demand right now in the schools are usually the sciences, so biology, chemistry, physics. Of course, French is always in demand, and mathematics. So if those are your interests, people are looking for you.
Of course, and for students that are potentially entering their first year as a prospect, in 4 years, 5, 6 years, that might change. The demand might change, and there's a bit of flexibility in there too, where when you're going to choose exactly what you're pursuing, if maybe after first year you've tried out one area of focus and you realize, you know what, this isn't my area that I am truly passionate about, or I want to extend that and I want to do other ideas. I mean, this panel itself has shown, I think, sort of the support that's available within the faculty and administrative staff to then guide you on that path to make sure that you get the best educational experience that you've come here for. So, and I was going to mention that chatting about what Dr. Helyar mentioned, how some students are born as teachers and some have passions and need to gain the skills to become a natural born teacher. And through some of our unique learning opportunities, we certainly have opportunities within there that expand on that knowledge. So we're going to dive into that in just a moment here. Next, I want to chat about graduate programs. So students that already have an undergraduate degree or potentially a teacher's degree, I believe, if not, and they want to expand. So this is where you've maybe worked in the field and now you're coming back to get your master's or even a PhD. We have a few options. So under our master's programs, you do have the Education for Change. So there's specializations in environmental and sustainability education, Indigenous education, and social justice education. Another master's option is the educational studies, and there are optional specializations in gerontology and gender and women's studies. We also have doctoral programs, one of them. So there's a Doctor of Philosophy in Educational Studies. And in this one, there's specializations available in cognition and learning, social, cultural, political contexts, and leadership and policy studies. So it really speaks to sort of how each student can come in with their own ideas of what they really want to focus in on and then specialize further within that. And of course, for students that are pursuing some of these degrees, they already know that they're pursuing it for a very specific reason. And that might influence sort of how they adjust their specialization choice or specifically what courses they might take if they have electives. Did anyone have anything to add about graduate programs before we power through to some of the unique learning opportunities?
I can do that.
Okay.
So within our master's program, most of our students pass through in 1 to 2 years. You're taking, or you have the option of pursuing a course-based route where you would take 10 half courses. And some of those options are sort of set out for you excuse me, within Education for Change, you would take electives that are based in your area of specialty. Educational Studies is a little bit more open. We also have a second route, which is the portfolio, where you would do 8 half courses and then you would develop a project that really demonstrates your learning and has practical application. And then the other option is a thesis-based. So the thesis-based program, you would take 6 courses and then you would develop a thesis under the supervision of a doctor or one of our faculty. The doctoral program takes a little bit longer. We have a joint PhD program with the universities of Windsor and Brock. And our students take a variety of courses in their field of study. And then, it's a little bit of a longer process. But if you have any questions about that, certainly you can send me an email.
Awesome. Well, thank you for chatting about the different routes within there. I think the different routes also speak to the fact that it depends on exactly the student who's pursuing it. So whether you know that you're most successful in course-based learning, or if you're really passionate about potentially doing the thesis option or the portfolio option, there's also our recruitment advisors, but I think at this point, maybe the Faculty of Education is probably the best contact for anyone interested in pursuing or learning more about exactly what's entailed in those 3 routes too. So next I want to do some program highlights and chat about also the unique learning opportunities. And this is a great segue into sort of gaining that knowledge to be one of the best and most successful teachers. And that's through our 105 days of placements that's built into our undergraduate programs. I'm not sure on the panel who's going to be the best answer. I'm sure probably all 4 of you might want to speak to this and add to it. So I'll open the floor again.
I'm sure we all can. I'll say a little bit and then Francis can correct me and add to it. We have 105 days of placement, as it says there. The minimum required in Ontario to become a teacher is 80 days of placement. So we have 4 placements at the end of each of 4 terms, 25 to 30 days long each. Your expectation on each of your placement is graduated, so that on your first placement you are expected that you will take on so much teaching over the course of that placement, and then that increases over the next 2 placements after that, so that by the end you're doing 100% of the teaching load, and there's lots of support. We have, for people in the first year of the program, we have 2 people available, a faculty advisor and a faculty liaison, who support you in your role as in the school, along with the associate teacher that you work with. So there's a whole team of people around you supporting you. And in the event that a student struggles on practicum, then we provide additional remedial support as well outside of the practicum. For students who are successful over the course of their first 3 practicums, so by that point they have achieved 80 days of successful practicum, the 4th practicum can be what we call an alternative practicum. And in different times, that can sometimes include international travel. We have international placements. Sometimes for a student within Canada, they might request to go to a different province, like Alberta or British Columbia, to do their placement. Or there might be something interesting. Someone might want to be an environmental educator and they'd like to be in an outdoor education facility. Or they might want to do some special education, which isn't not normally something that you would do in the rest of your practicum. So you might go back into a regular school, but do something like special education. Or you might just want to go back into the kind of classroom you've been in and spend more time perfecting your teaching practice.
If I could just add, Don, the opportunities that our students have and the excitement that they have at that opportunity to be able to, we know they've succeeded in their first 3 placements. Their grades are good and their practice teaching reports are good, and so they've demonstrated that they have the skills they need to be a classroom teacher, but maybe they have, as Don mentioned, a passion for something, and we have partnerships so that we can help them take part in these other places, other opportunities. But sometimes the students themselves have ideas for other opportunities, and we're very open to creating these additional placements, alternative placements, that help to stretch the teacher candidate or students' understanding of what is teaching, that teaching doesn't just happen in schools. It can happen in a variety of settings, or within a school, there are a variety of settings other than just the classroom itself. And there are so many different jobs you can have with a teaching degree, and the alternative placement is one way of helping our students become aware of that, because a teaching degree is, and I'm speaking as somebody who got a teaching degree and then went on to do all kinds of different things before I came to academia. So it's a great way to remind students of that when you get a teaching degree, you're not necessarily just heading straight into a classroom.
Awesome, and thank you for chatting about the different varieties in there and the opportunities also that are a part of these placements. Speaking from experience, not as a teacher itself, but growing up in Ontario, where I actually had quite often in my classrooms, I had students from Lakehead University actually in my classroom, and they were the teacher's assistant and doing their placements. And I think it's funny that teachers can be quite flexible and quite willing to let the student who's learning from Lakehead University come and get the best subjects or teach the most fun projects. And so I always have fond memories of the Lakehead students coming in, because they also brought with them some really exciting and really updated learning aspects, but also the projects that we worked on were always so cool. So now in academia myself and in the role I am, and relaying the message of what the Faculty of Education can provide, I think it's important to note that these placements are really exciting opportunities for students that are in the program, and they typically have an amazing time, and they also get to maybe geek out essentially, and then they get to really expand during these placements and share their knowledge with younger audiences. So whether it be students in a high school or elementary school.
I do want to make it clear though, Jordan, it's not all fun and games. You do need to
of course,
have
yeah.
the basic knowledge. You need to have the groundwork. But you're right that once you've got the groundwork, there are so many different things you can do, and you're right, it is really fun to see teacher candidates who have developed, especially after 3 placements, they've developed that knowledge, that comfort, that willingness to try something new, and also the wonderful associate teachers is what we call the host teachers, who are so generous, giving their time to help develop our teacher candidates, and who let them try things, because it's a great time to try out ideas, and the children really benefit with that level of enthusiasm.
Certainly. Oh yeah, sorry, Meredith.
Sorry, I wanted to add to that we really have a strong focus on getting that practical experience, because as Dr. Kerr was talking about, we have the P-pods that get you in the schools and interacting with children. For our concurrent students in their partner degree in the second year, they take an introduction to teaching class, where they actually have, they go out into schools and they do sort of like an internship within the schools. So, that experiential learning and the hands-on is really a strong focus of the program.
Certainly, and then that also speaks to probably going back to earlier slides where we talked about the employment rate after graduation, how students leave with their Lakehead degree, but leave with experience, and employers recognize that they've been in the community, they've been in schools a significant number of times, and the practical education that they've learned is going to be an easier transition into a full teaching role or supply teaching or just being in the classroom environment. They already have that experience. So then once they've graduated, now they can easily segue into that full-time position.
I'm laughing because I teach the history of teacher education, and the that balance between theory and practice, the knowledge of the content, but also the knowledge of how to teach. As I'm looking at the history of faculties of education, and before that teachers colleges, and before that normal schools. Now I'm giving you all the history, but finding that balance is difficult, but I think that we do very well at Lakehead in giving our students the balance of the theoretical content knowledge they need to have in order to know what they're teaching, but then the practical experience helps them to practice being with real children in real classes, in real situations, and to learn how to handle the kinds of situations that you know are going to come up when you're teaching. So it's and also having those practicum with knowledgeable associate teachers who are there to guide them, to help them in some ways to coach them, but also to evaluate them and give them feedback. It's all about the feedback loop. I think we in all of our program, we give you feedback about what you've done, and then you take the feedback, you internalize it, and you keep, again, I'm always talking about that journey, and it's a journey to become the best teacher that you can be through incorporating everything that you're learning and reflecting on it and moving forward.
Certainly. Thank you for adding that. Another segue, I think we're going back a bit, but unique learning opportunities within there and the placements is talking about that fourth term and the possibilities to do international teaching placements. And so the photo you see here is a group of our students that went to China, and they got to explore Asia, but also they got practical experience in a classroom within China. So that was a great opportunity for them. That's one of many. I couldn't put up all of the photos, of course. I know I've asked Hector to run a quick list of sort of what countries we've been to and where we know students currently have gone within Lakehead University.
Yeah, so we've been to Malaysia, Scotland, Wales, San Martin, and London as well.
Awesome. And I'm sure if any of the panel wants to add to this experience, or maybe even if you could highlight sort of, I'm sure you've had students or you know students that come back from these opportunities and they rant and rave about how amazing it was or what they got up to on the trip. If you wouldn't mind highlighting some of that, that would be great.
I can add that we've had a long-standing partnership with schools in China. So unfortunately, in the last couple of years, we haven't been able to send students to China, but there is a high demand and there's a lot of interest. So we'd be very interested in renewing that partnership or keeping it going should the opportunities arise again where we can send students to China. And in fact, with all of the partnerships, but in particular, I can think of some of the students who have gone to China in the past. Many of them have remained there and continue to teach. And we hear back from them regularly, or they remain there for 4 years or 8 years, and then they come back to Canada and they move back to Canada later on and pursue the rest of their teaching career here. And there's been at least one case where 2 students went across and then got married while they were over there. And there's been, I'm sure there's lots of other stories like that as well. So it's one good way to head off into the world and to learn a lot of new things.
Don, you took the words right out of my mouth. That's the story. Many go take up these opportunities and come back and with that extra knowledge and experience under their belt. Some go and stay, and some fall in love.
Awesome. And of course, we also, I'd be remiss not to mention some of our special pathways with the Maple Leaf School, which is an international school in Asia. And we also are proud to have a Maple Leaf School high school on campus here in Thunder Bay. I'm based in Thunder Bay at Lakehead University. And we're very proud to have a Maple Leaf campus with us within the ranks. So if you're interested in learning there, if you're a Maple Leaf student even, and you want to learn about those pathways and some of the agreements we have when pursuing a teacher's education, I certainly implore you to connect with our recruitment advisors in both Beijing and Shanghai, or any one of our Maple Leaf guidance counselors. They are also fully aware of sort of the pathways that students have within these various programs. So another thing I wanted to chat about that I know we're coming towards the end of today's session is career opportunities. So we've done a lot of talking about becoming a teacher, and that's of course why it's listed at the top there on the left. But there are certainly other opportunities because you have a teaching degree, because you have that undergrad or grad doesn't necessarily mean that you are set to one career path. And so on your screen, you can see a variety of them. Did anyone want to maybe add to where we've seen students going recently, or even some that may not be listed on the screen? This is by no means an exhaustive list of opportunities that students have, but it is some of the popular ones we've certainly seen.
I think a lot of our students are involved in environmental education, so outdoor recreation centers or that kind of thing. Folks in Thunder Bay, I think you might have a greater knowledge of that. But in places like libraries, museums, where curriculum is being delivered, or programs are being delivered based on the Ontario curriculum. And so people with Bachelor of Education degrees are generally the people who hold those programming jobs, especially in programming for children, have teaching degrees.
And I will say that, with the training and development specialist, a lot of companies hire teachers to do their training because it's a lot easier to teach someone the content, or to teach a trainer the content, and then if they know how to set up the educational experience, than it is to take someone who may be a great specialist in that area and try to teach some people the teaching component of it. So, our students come out of our program with a lot of opportunities to learn how to break things down and to deliver content in a way that makes them very successful in doing corporate training, for example.
For sure, and to add on to that is, I think a special note is that you can probably be one of the best employees, one of the top ranking employees within your organization or company. That doesn't necessarily mean that you have the skills or the expertise to then relay that message to new employees or new hires. And just like we mentioned here, is the training and development specialist is then actually being able to go in as a teacher and having that degree, learning the knowledge of that organization, and then being able to translate it to new hires, which then I'm sure there might be an aspect where they are coupled with, or the top employees maybe work with them at some point, but it's maybe a guided experience that our teachers could be helping facilitate. And also to add on to what Dr. Helyar said, at the bottom of the list, you see community development officer, as well as at the top of the right side of the list, the adult library teacher. So some of these community officers that are doing community development and programming within public institutions that are offered to, just have extracurricular activities for any one of the citizens in a variety of cities, essentially. These are all opportunities that you can navigate your career that speaks also to your passions. And I think we've talked about that throughout today's webinar, is it always comes back to your passion. So even if you want to become a teacher and then you realize that maybe working directly in a classroom with 30 students might not be what you pictured it as, it might be a wake-up call for you, but then it's still something that you're passionate about. You recognize that you want to take that and you want to teach adults education, or you want to teach mature students education, or you want to be in one of these community programming. So there's certainly a lot of career opportunities, and like I mentioned, this is not an exhaustive list. If I had to do an exhaustive list, I think it would be many more slides, and it wouldn't even be a full breadth of where the degree reaches. Did anyone have anything to add on to this slide before we move on?
Not this slide, but Jordan,
Yeah.
do we have a math competency exam slide?
We don't. Just you can certainly chat about that. Is it directly related to the undergraduate programs?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
I'll start, and everybody else can jump in. We at Lakehead, we believe that that students need to know their math. We're going to teach you how to teach math, but at the primary junior level, you're going to be teaching math, so you need to know how to actually do the math that is included in the grade, say kindergarten to maybe grade 7, because you may be teaching some gifted students. So we have a math competency exam. You write it the first week of your professional program. So that 2-year professional program, whether you are coming through after many years at Lakehead University or you've come from someplace else into the concurrent program, the end of the first week, you write your exam for the first time. And if you do not pass, you are able to write it a second time in March. If you don't pass then, a third time the following September, the fourth time the following March. So over the 2 years, you have 4 opportunities to write a math competency exam. If math is not your friend, we have so many supports to help you learn, including peer support. We have courses for you to take. We have activities that we do. There's so much support. So even if you come into our program, as many do, and they're not really comfortable teaching math by the end, my observation is the graduates of our program in the K-6 come away very confident in teaching math, knowing how to do the math so that they can sit with a child and observe a child and diagnose what do I need to teach this child, how do I need to teach this child, rather than you got the right answer, you got the wrong answer, and so on. So it's a feature of our program, but I think it's very helpful for our teacher candidates, and it gives them that an extra qualification really that many other universities don't provide.
Awesome. Did anyone else have anything to add about that? I know it's a tidbit as a part of the undergraduate programs, and certainly to any of our viewers that wanted to learn more about the math competency test or exam, you can certainly head over to our website, lakeheadu.ca, and then navigate to the Faculty of Education's website and learn more about it. I know that they have information. And to add on to the resources, we also do have the Student Success Center, as well as academic supports built within that. So every year they analyze sort of what students are coming to them with needs and what supports do they require, and they develop programming year by year. But they do, of course, offer regular math programming on the Thunder Bay campus. We call it our academic zone, and it also includes the math center, writing center, all that sort of stuff. And then I recently visited the Aurelia campus for the first time in my role here at Lakehead University, and I learned more about their academic zone and the supports that are built in with that, which do include math as well. So I'll pass it over. The next slide here is outstanding alumni, and I'll pass it over to Hector to introduce one of our outstanding alumni.
Thank you, Jordan. So yes, Sadaf Kang was one of our international students from India who completed her Master's of Education here at Lakehead University. She was an exceptional teacher in India who chose to come to Lakehead, mainly because of the high standard of our education and the affordability, both in terms of academics and a cost of living here in town. In a recent testimonial, she mentioned that one of the things that she appreciated the most about her experience here at Lakehead was that classes were small and it was easier to get to know her peers and professors, making her feel more at home and helping her explore her abilities as a professional, and helped her gain a better understanding of what she was capable of on her own. Speaking a little bit to that kind of support or level of support students have here at Lakehead University and the almost personalized experience they get when they come to study with us.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Hector. That does conclude the main portion of today's presentation about the Faculty of Education, Teachers Education. Thank you for checking out today's video. If you have any questions, you can always comment below. Stay connected and follow us on our social media channels to stay informed about upcoming webinars and get an insider sneak peek of Lakehead University. See you next time.